Why is art important?
A number of years ago, I was a little dispirited with writing, and I thought I would find a different day job. And so I asked my elder son, I said, "What do you think? I could become a census taker." And he said, "Mom, you'd be fine for a while, and then you'd start making up your own questions." He said, "You wouldn't stick to script." And so I'm not going to make up my own question, but I am going to tweak it a little bit. And that um, and that is in this way. It seems to me easy and useful to think about, why is this art important, or why does this art matter? And so, for example, I have a gallery of my young grandson's paintings on my dining room wall, floor to ceiling. And those matter, and those are important because they tell me a lot about him that I couldn't learn in any other way. Uh, Years ago, I was in at an exhibit at the National Gallery, I think, of Lorenzo Lotto's paintings. There was a painting of Jesus on the cross, and I'd never ever seen anything like the eyes. And I stood in the museum weeping, seeing these eyes and thinking, I've always thought of Jesus being looked at in this moment. I've never thought about Jesus looking and Jesus seeing in that moment. And if that's not power of art, I don't know what is. There's a poem by Charles Wesley that makes me cry every time I hear it, and I've heard it hundreds of times. So I think that there's just a capability of art to do things that can't be done in any other way. And I had an interesting experience this morning. I'm tutoring Ukrainians in English online. And I was meeting with one of my students this morning, and I said, "Why does art matter? Why is art important?" And she thought for a minute, and she said, "Well, in ancient times, people roamed around and they never settled. But then they began to build temples, and they settled down and began to plant crops. And they lived near whatever the temple or church or cathedral or whatever it might have been." So she said they wanted to be near the art, which I thought was really interesting. And she said, and the art created community. And so I think that we could just spend endless amounts of time paying attention to the different things that art does, the things that art brings to our lives. So for me, I get really intrigued by the question of, why does this particular art matter? Why is this art important? And then for the making of art, in terms of my art, which is writing fiction, there's something about the process of making art that's different from other endeavors. And I experience it as being totally out of contact with my surround, and really being just caught up in a different realm, in a different kind of absorption in something. And I've never experienced that in any other way other than when I'm when I'm making the art. So there's a few of my little tidbit answers to the question.